So you're sitting there behind the screen, about to introduce your big villain for the first time. You've got notes, and you've got motivation. You know exactly who this character is and what they want. And then you open your mouth, and what comes out is you? Just you. Maybe a little lower. Maybe you're doing some vaguely British thing that sounds more like a drunk pirate than the ancient lich you had in mind. And you immediately think, I'm bad at this. I can't do voices. I'm not charismatic enough. I should have taken acting classes. Why can't I sound like Matt Mercer? Let me stop you right there. You don't need to be a voice actor to be a great GM. You don't need theatrics. You don't need to do accents or voices or any of that performance stuff. That makes you feel like you're auditioning for a play nobody asks you to be in. What you need is to communicate clearly. That's it. That's the whole game. Your players aren't judging your Cockney accent. They're not sitting there thinking, wow, this NPC sounds exactly like a 60-year-old dwarven blacksmith would in real life. They're listening to whether you're giving them something to latch onto. They're watching for clues about who this person is, what they want, and whether they should care. And all that comes down to communication, not performance. So kids, this is what we're going to cover. Vocal tools that don't require acting training. Confidence frameworks that kill imposter syndrome before it kills your sessions. Narrative techniques that create immersion without you having to become a theatre kid, and how to handle mistakes when they happen, because they will, and that's fine. So let's get into it. Here's the dirty little secret about character voices. Accents are optional. Completely optional. You can run an entire campaign without doing a single voice, and your players will have just as much fun as they would as if you were doing 12 distinct accents per session. What actually makes a character feel distinct isn't the accent, it's everything else. Speech patterns, vocabulary, rhythm, energy. Let me give you an example. Take two NPCs. One is a nervous merchant trying to offload cursed goods. The other is a confident guild leader who's used to getting their way. You don't need to do different accents to make these two people feel completely different. You just need to change how they talk. The nervous merchant, fast, rambling, keep circling back to the same points because they're trying to convince you and themselves at the same time. Lots of I mean and you know and it's really not a big deal. Sentences that don't quite finish before starting a new one. The guild leader? Slow. Every word is a choice. They pause before answering because they're used to people waiting for them to speak. Short sentences. Declarative. No filler words. They don't need to convince you of anything because they already know you'll do what they want. No accents. Totally different characters. And if you want to push it even further, add physicality. No, I'm not talking about getting up and doing the whole performance. I'm talking about small shifts that your player will pick up on, subconsciously, even if they're not looking at you. Lean back in your chair when you're playing someone confident. Hunch forward when you're playing someone desperate. Pinch your nose slightly when you're doing a high status character who looks down on the party. Relax your shoulders when you're doing someone warm and approachable. These are tiny adjustments, but your brain is wired to pick up on body language, and your players' brains are too. Even if they're staring at their character sheets, they'll feel the difference in your energy. And boy, let me hold you closer while I say this, but actually, you don't have to do the voice all the time. You can just describe it, like her voice is melodic, like she's always half singing even when she's talking, or she speaks so quietly you have to lean in to hear her. Boom, done. You just told your players how this person sounds, and now their imagination is doing the work for you. They're filling in the details, you gave them the framework and they built the character in their heads. That's all you need. Okay, but even if you know all that intellectually, there's still this voice in the back of your head going, yeah, but what if I'm bad at this? Let's talk about that voice, because it's not actually about your skills, it's about confidence. And confidence isn't some magical thing you either have or don't, it's a mindset shift. First, let's name the gunk. You know what I'm talking about. The Matt Mercer effect, imposter syndrome, the feeling you're not a real DM because you don't have a professional production and a voice acting background and a table full of actors who cry on cue. That stuff is mental clutter, and it's sitting in your brain taking up space that should be focused on your game. So here's what you do. Acknowledge it. Don't try to push it down or ignore it. Just recognize it's there. I'm nervous that I'm gonna sound stupid. Okay, cool. That thought you're having is not a fact about reality. It's just anxiety doing what anxiety does. And once you've acknowledged it, you can set it aside. Here's the reframe that kills that anxiety faster than anything else. Service mindset. Stop thinking, how do I sound right now, and start thinking, are my players having fun? That shift in focus is everything, because when you're worried about how you sound, you're stuck in your own head. You're performing for some imaginary audience that's judging you. But when you're focused on serving your players, it's not about you anymore. It's about them. And that for me kills self-consciousness dead. It's not your job to impress impress anyone. It's your job to give your players something to react to. That's it. And if you need a physical reset before the session starts, try jumping jacks. I'm being serious. 20 jumping jacks right before you sit down, or a power pose. Stand up, arms wide, chest out, hold it for 2 minutes. It sounds ridiculous, and I don't know why, but it works. Or breath work. Inhale for 5 seconds, hold for 3, exhale for 8. Do that 3 times. It forces your nervous system to calm down. These are tools, just use them. You don't have to be naturally charismatic to be confident. You just need the right toolkit that gets you in the right headspace, even when you don't feel ready. Alright, now let's talk about how you can actually build immersion in your sessions. And the trick here is this: stop summarizing, start zooming in. Most of the time when a scene doesn't land with the group, it's because the DM is giving a summary instead of an experience. They're telling the players what happened instead of putting them in the moment. And the fix is simple. You just need to hit 5 story elements every time you describe something important. Location, action, thought, emotion, and dialogue. Let me break that down. Location, where are we? Not just you're in a tavern. Give them one specific detail that grounds the scene. You're in a tavern with low ceilings and smoke from the fireplace hanging in the air. Action, what is happening right now? The bartender is wiping down the counter, but his eyes keep flicking to the door. Thought, what's going through the NPC's head? You can imply this without literally reading their mind. He's nervous about something. Emotion, show it, don't tell it. Don't say he's scared, say his hand shakes slightly as he sets down the glass. And dialogue, short, punchy, human. You lot looking for trouble or just passing through. Boom, that's a scene. You don't need to do a voice, and you don't have to stand up and act it out. You just gave your players 5 anchors and now they're in a moment. And here's a structure trick that separates boring narration from engaging storytelling. But and therefore instead of and then. Bad storytelling is just a list of events. This happens and then this happens and then this happens. There's no momentum, no cause and effect. Good storytelling uses but and therefore. Your players are trying to open a locked door. You try to pick the lock and then you hear footsteps and then a guard appears. Or you could say you start picking the lock but the mechanism is old and it's taking longer than you thought. Therefore you still crouch there when you hear boots on stone. Therefore you have about 10 seconds before the guard rounds the corner. Every but creates a complication. Every therefore forces a consequence. I actually have a whole video about pacing and stuff like this. You can find the link for that here if you want to watch it. Okay, so you've got the structure down. You're zooming in instead of summarizing, but there's still one thing that's tripping you up. Filler words. Kind of, maybe, like. These words kill your authority as a GM. Not because they make you sound dumb, they signal uncertainty. And when you sound uncertain, your players start second guessing everything you say. So here's how to fix that. Using intentional pauses. Stop talking, just stop. Let the silence sit there for a second. I know that feels weird. I know your brain is screaming at you to fill the gap with noise. But silence is a tool, and it builds tension. It makes whatever you say next feel more important, and it makes you sound confident even when you're not. Try it. Next time you're about to say, just stop. Count to 2 in your head and then keep going. Your players won't notice the pause. They'll just notice that you sound like you know what you're doing. And here's another trick, the one thing rule. When you describe a scene, start with the most important detail first. Don't bury the lead. Don't ramble through 5 sentences before you get to the point. The room is kind of dark and there's some furniture and maybe some papers on the desk and yeah, it stinks. Or you could say it like this. The room stinks of rot. Then you pause, let that land, then add details. The furniture is overturned, papers scattered everywhere, and in the corner, something is moving. See the difference? You anchored the scene with the most important detail first. Everything else builds on that foundation, and your players aren't trying to sort through a wall of information. They're focused on the one thing that matters. And now we get to the part nobody wants to talk about, mistakes. You're going to mess up. You're going to forget a clue. You're going to contradict yourself. You're going to call an NPC by the wrong name, or accidentally reveal information the players weren't supposed to know yet. And that's fine. Mistakes don't break immersion, but panic does. So here's how you handle it. Your first option is a narrative patch. Don't fold the mistake into the story. You forgot to give them a clue. A book falls off the shelf and lands at their feet, open to the exact page they need. An NPC blurts out the information they should have found earlier, because they're drunk or nervous or trying to impress someone. It's not cheating, it's just improv. And your players won't know it's not planned. Your second option is to own it and be honest. Hey, I made a bad call there. That doesn't make sense with what I said earlier. Then ask your table, do we retcon it or do we roll with it and figure out why it's weird? Most of the time your players will appreciate the honesty, and half the time they'll come up with a better explanation than you would have anyways. Your third option is to retcon. Use them sparingly, but don't be afraid of them. If you accidentally killed the wrong NPC or revealed information that ruins the entire campaign, just retcon it. Actually, let's rewind. That didn't happen, but only if the table agrees. Make it a collaborative choice. That way, it's not you dictating reality, it's the group deciding how the story should go. And the key is trust. Your players trust you to run the game, and you need to trust them to help you when things go sideways. Mistakes aren't failures, they're just part of the process. And that brings me to the last thing I want to talk about, language. The words that you use as a GM shape how your players experience the game. And there's one small shift you can do that makes it better. Stop saying I when you're narrating and start saying you and we. You will see an explosion in the distance. The party notices the guard is reaching for his sword. We're in this together. And with that, you're creating a shared story. When you use you and we, you're reinforcing group identity. You're reminding everyone at the table that this is a collaborative experience, not just you performing for them. You're building something with them, which is the whole point, right? D&D isn't a one-person show. It's a conversation. It's a group of people sitting around a table figuring out what happens next. And your job as the GM isn't to be the star of the show. Your job is to communicate clearly, empower your players, and build moments together. You don't need to be charismatic or theatrical or any of that. You just need to show up and trust that your players are there because they want to be. And that's it. If you can do that, you're already a great GM. So let me know in the comments if you struggle with your communication and doing voices and acting, or if you're a player and your GM's having the same sort of problems. Share your experience with everyone so we can all learn together. Thank you for watching, and as always, stay spicy, adventurers.